For the first time in history, we've got a YouTube video that may cause me physical pain rather than emotional pain. Coffee is one of those things that upsets my IBS and sends my bowels into a screaming panic, for which I am suffering from explosive diarrhea for 45 minutes straight as I sit on the toilet, hunched over, completely butt naked, fighting for my life, begging for mercy, wishing it all would be over. I don't know how all these white women just walk around, just all woo, just walking around with their Starbucks iced coffee, all willy-nilly in the summer sun, dude. There's absolutely no way people are just walking around with titanium guts, dude. I guarantee you they are releasing some of the most silent, yet also the most deadly flatulence that could violate the Geneva Convention. But alas, Chris gets to suffer yet again, and the pain will never end. Coffee. Science's most important discovery. Yeah, because you can use it as a weapon of war. If you feed it to your enemies, they're gonna be too busy shitting in giant craters in the ground than fighting. What's just gonna happen?
We have bad news.
More bad news. This really hasn't been my day, or week, or month.
Or even your year.
Ross, we're kicking you out of the friends group and replacing you with Sir Isaac Newton. We met him here at the coffee house and he's better than you in, like, every possible way.
Hello, Ross. From your handshake, I'm guessing you're a paleontologist.
Isaac Newton.
Yeah?
Dude.
How'd you know?
Fuck Isaac Newton. I am a certified Isaac Newton hater. Alright, Isaac Newton is the reason why a lot of very bad things happened. If it wasn't for Isaac Newton, the dinosaurs would have never gotten wiped out.
Soft handshake.
Think about
Soft
that.
science.
Could he be any better than Ross?
I never fell off my bike when I was 7. Bill Nye
Hello,
clears.
Internet. Welcome to Food Theory. Hold up. They always spell it wrong. Much better. Welcome to Food Theory. Today we've brewed up an episode about coffee. Ever heard of it? It's only Western civilization's caffeinated beverage of choice, that's all. The world consumes an estimated 2.25 billion cups of coffee every day.
Oh
Every
my
day.
God!
It's 100
2.25 billion cup. Who's drinking all that coffee? Who's drinking? This is like 4 people doing this. There's no way.
every day. Every day! It's $100 billion a year industry. Sorry if it's too early to be getting pelted with coffee factoids, but what can I say? Coffee is so hot right now.
Where's my damn latte?
Not that it's
Hilarious.
a new phenomenon or anything, coffee's been hot for centuries, ever since it started making its way out of Ethiopia in the 1400s via trade routes. And this is where today's theory comes into play. On this timeline here,
Look at that,
you'll
black
notice that
excellence.
coffee and coffee houses became popular in Europe just before the Enlightenment, the Age of Reason. This is when famous thinkers like Isaac Newton and John Locke embraced the notion that science and reason could bring about happiness and progress. The Enlightenment gave us representative
And look at where it's brought us. Look at where it's brought us. The world is in absolute turmoil. All right? We are fighting ourselves. We are burning this planet to the ground, dude.
democracy.
The dodos are extinct, for crying out loud.
It gave us Newtonian physics. It gave us separation
Look at
of
where science has led us.
church and state. And what brought about this pivotal defining era of Western civilization? Well, your history teacher will probably tell you that it's complicated. After all, check out all these movements and eras that laid the cultural and scientific groundwork in Europe ahead of the Enlightenment. You have the Renaissance, the Scientific Revolution, but I'm not here to untangle the complex web that's Western Civ in a 15-minute YouTube video. I'm here to suggest that for once, just once, it's not all that complicated. All we gotta do is follow the food. Coffee and coffee houses caused the Enlightenment. And if you think a beverage can't change the very course of human history, buckle up, because it can do far more
I think
than
a lot of
that.
those guys are
Coffee
frauds.
can and
If you think
has
about
been
it,
changing
like
our
gravity.
brain.
Think about it, right? Like gravity. right? Isaac Newton got clonked on the head by an apple, and he was like, well, good golly almighty, egad, would you take a gander, right? And he was like, gravity! And everybody's like, oh yeah, gravity, dude. We all just listen to this guy. Like, who is Isaac Newton? Like, this guy's just like, oh yeah, dude, gravity thing makes things fall. And we're all like, oh my god, dude, yeah, well, hell yeah, dude. You're absolutely right, it does. Says Isaac fucking Newton. Who is this guy? Who does he think he is? Bill Nye?
Since its inception, and at 2.25 billion cups a day, you better believe it's changing a whole lot of brains in our world right now. You've heard it before, you are what you eat. Well, same goes double for what you drink.
You are what you eat.
Whole lot of brains in our world
Explains why I'm a human.
right now. You've heard it before, you are what you eat. Well, same goes double for what you drink. Before the Enlightenment, alcohol was Western civilization's legal and
Explains why I'm made out of 70. Okay, I'm not finishing that joke.
readily
I
available
was gonna make. I'm not
choice.
finishing.
Alcohol was everywhere, sort of like in college, except instead of getting an A on your astronomy paper on heliocentrism, you got put on trial as a heretic and put under house arrest, or, you know, burned at the stake. And when I say that alcohol
He's just
was
like
the
young
drug of
boy.
choice, I'm not joking around here. Until the 18th century rolled around, it wasn't uncommon for people to drink beer almost continuously throughout the day. All day, every day.
Hell
People
yeah!
would straight up begin their day with something
Dude,
called
the
beer
18th century seems hard. Everybody's walking around in knee highs and penny loafers. We're just drinking beer with the boys 24/7. There's no taxes yet. Think about it. Just living the life. New York is not a thing.
soup.
Texas is not a thing. Oh my god, dude, take me back. I grew up in the wrong generation, dude. Yeah, sure. Maybe there was rampant slavery running about, dude. Maybe my ancestors were enslaved against their will. But listen,
Move over, Wheaties.
The
I think
penny
we found
loafers.
ourselves the real breakfast of champions. Some suggest that the reason for this was a matter of water purity. Because the water was so often polluted in those days, distilled alcohol became the most reliable source of liquid refreshment. Now, this water pollution theory is highly scrutinized as untrue, but whatever the reason, it was around this time that coffee took over, and Westerners' day-drinking hobby went the way of dinosaurs and feudalism. And this shift in beverage had tremendous effects on Western society. For centuries, the beverage of choice in Europe had been alcohol, a depressant. But then coffee comes along and suddenly society finds itself inundated with caffeine, a stimulant. But why did this gigantic depressant to stimulant shift occur in the 17th century of all times? After all, coffee is a naturally
didn't have
occurring
crack
plant,
yet.
and humans
That's
have had
why.
alcohol at least since 7000 BC. I can easily understand why a society would prefer a coffee lifestyle.
7,000 BC. So you telling me Fred Flintstone and the Oonga Boonga Boys was just sitting around day drinking, singing sea shanties? Nah, that's hard. That's fucking hard. After a long day of hunting wild boar, throwing rocks at woolly mammoths, you come home to a tall pint of Guinness. A 40 ounce.
To a beer
That's
soup
hard.
lifestyle, but why didn't it happen any earlier? Like thousands and thousands
A
of
Miller
years
Lite
earlier.
and a
answer
frozen
is
turkey
shockingly
meal.
simple. It took humans a ridiculous amount of time to discover that coffee beans could be roasted. Like an embarrassingly long time. Guys, we didn't figure out how to roast coffee until the 1400s. I mean,
Oh
come
my
on,
God,
humans
we're such
figured out
fucking
how to build
losers.
rockets back in the 1200s. Yet we couldn't figure out how to roast a naturally occurring bean for another 200 years. Oh, and never mind the fact that it took us yet another century or 3 to figure
Damn.
out how to transport coffee beans long distances without them spoiling. And that's
Dude, Matthew seems like a
important to keep in mind.
hater. He's a huge human hater. He's like, you fucking dweebs. You guys are such losers. It took you to the 1600s to start roasting coffee? I was roasting coffee when I was 7.
how to transport
Fucking
coffee
losers.
beans long distances without them spoiling. And that's important to keep in mind because the Enlightenment began in
I was
Europe.
skinning
but
bears
coffee doesn't grow
alive
anywhere near
by the
there.
time I was
It only grows in
13.
specific climates near the equator known as the bean belt. So coffee's journey from Ethiopia to Europe wasn't fast, and it certainly wasn't easy. As transportation methods slowly improved though, coffee was able to creep its way through the Middle East in the 1500s, but the beverage was prohibited, even criminalized in many of those nations when it first came on the scene. Who knows, perhaps Turkey could have been the epicenter of the Enlightenment if the government hadn't punished repeat coffee offenders by sewing them into leather bags and tossing them into the ocean. Watch out, Starbucks baristas. You play a dangerous game. By the
That is psychotic.
mid-1600s,
Sewing them into bags like just a ball sack floating in the fucking river.
out Starbucks baristas. You play a dangerous game. By
That's
the
crazy.
mid-1600s, transportation methods were finally at a point where Europe had access to all the caffeine it could possibly handle. Now, a shift in beverage preference may not seem like that big of a deal, but it was. Depressants and stimulants affect our brains in very different ways. And when an entire society undergoes a simultaneous change in their brains...
Look at what happens. As soon as they got access, as soon as the British got access to the coffee and they started getting all hyped up, jumping off the walls, vibrating all the time, getting all amped up because the caffeine was hitting their system, dude, running through their veins, they felt the need to conquer the entire world.
Well, that's when you get yourself a cultural shift like there never
Started
was
colonizing.
before. Essentially, a depressant acts to slow down or depress the activities in your brain. Doctors typically prescribe depressants to relieve anxiety.
How far have we
help with
come?
Sleep problems.
I need to get me some of that 1700s coffee, dude, because those people were going on voyages across the 7 seas, all right? Colonizing land and spreading their people, dude. And it is now 2022. I drink one black coffee. I'm on the toilet for an hour.
That pop to mind include relaxed, sedated. The word
I've read the same
motivated
bottle of
does not.
shampoo
Think of it this
6
way.
times.
If depressants were a person, they'd basically be the dude from The Big Lebowski.
Well, you know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
Meanwhile, stimulants do the exact opposite of depressants. They speed up, stimulate activities in the body. This means heightened alertness, concentration, more energy. If stimulants were a person, they'd be this guy.
Coffee time! Coffee, 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 coffee!
Generally speaking, the effects of stimulants mean increased productivity. Of course, tea can contain a fair amount of caffeine as well, and tea became readily available in Europe around the same time as coffee did. So why aren't we talking about tea? Well, it's because tea was very expensive at the time, prohibitively expensive. As a result, only the
What about
upper
meth?
crust of society consumed
Bro,
it, but
Kool-Aid.
not coffee. Coffee was a drink of the people, and that's a huge reason why coffee caused the Enlightenment, because it wasn't just about Europe getting stimulants, it was about getting stimulants into the hands of the right people. People like a young
Nice.
Isaac Newton.
Drugs. Isaac fucking Newton! Isaac Newton was hopped up on drugs when he discovered gravity, and now look at where we're at. Now look at where the fuck we're at, dude. All because somebody just had to give Isaac Newton some fucking drugs.
Before he got the Sir ahead of his name, Newton was just a 20-something who frequented a certain coffee house with his friends. Okay, not that coffee house, and not these friends either. Isaac Newton's buddies at Oxford were a tad bit more intellectual. Newton happened to be studying at Oxford when the coffee house craze first came to England. Now, an enlightened mind would never attribute something to fate, but it sure seems like Newton was the right person in the right place at the right time. In 1655, Newton and his friends formed the Oxford Coffee Club. Early participants in the club included Sir Edmund Halley, the great astronomer from whom
know
Halley's
that guy.
Comet is named after, Hans Sloane, founder of the British Museum, and of course, Sir Isaac Newton, who's arguably
Look at that. The 3 horsemen of the apocalypse, and they're all Brits. Who would have thought, dude? Who would have thought? Hades Comet, gravity, and a museum that has stolen items.
the
Look at
inventor
that.
of calculus
The fucking
and
Brits.
is inarguably one of the most remarkable scientific minds of all time. So this incredible group of people would meet up at the Tilliard's Coffee House to share ideas. They even dissected a dolphin on a coffee shop table during Newton's tenure as president of the organization. And over the years, the club evolved and grew to become the Royal Society of London, regarded today as the most prolific and most prestigious scientific academy in the world. Members of the Royal Society include Albert Einstein, Charles Darwin, Darwin, Stephen Hawking, Benjamin Franklin, pretty much every major scientific leap
That
made
is a
in the
cult.
past 4 centuries can be traced back to the
That is a
Royal
cult.
Society and to the coffee house that started it all. But there was another reason why Oxford students were so drawn to the coffee houses. At the beginning, pretty much all of the coffee houses were located on the Oxford campus because the king was strictly opposed to having the influence of caffeine. That's right, coffee and caffeine had a tough time gaining acceptance in Europe, much like in the Middle East. The coffee houses, or invisible colleges as they were often referred to, were detested by King Charles II, who believed
They were
coffee
basic.
houses helped.
So they were basically trap houses. It's essentially, you know what I'm saying? Back then, coffee was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? If you was moving coffee, you was moving bricks. You know what I'm saying? If you was moving beans, you was moving pounds. You know what I'm saying? Kilos. That's what you was doing back in the day. So when you pulled up with the boys to the trap to get blasted
Share
in penny loafers,
establishment ideas, and that might seem like it was a bit over the top.
That's
but the
hard.
thing is, Charles II couldn't have
hard.
been more right. After
21 Savage would love this. You know what I'm saying? These are his people. You know what I'm saying? He gets the best of both worlds. You know what I'm saying? He gets his red coat side, and then he gets his trap side. Perfect.
After all, coffee houses allow for the
21
sharing
Savage
of
would've
all
thrived.
sorts of ideas, not just math and science. Often the ideas were political in nature. It was the age of reason, and the notion of monarchies divinely deriving their power from God didn't exactly stand to, well, reason. The French Revolution, often considered the culmination of the Enlightenment, was planned in coffee houses. The American Revolution was planned in coffee houses. Coffee even became a symbol of American patriotism following the Boston Tea Party.
The
And it's
American Revolution was planned in a coffee house. Could you imagine being in a Starbucks? Could you imagine being in a Starbucks? It's like 8 o'clock in the morning, right? It's a little cloudy out. It's like March 7th, you know? You're just in the Starbucks. You're waiting in line, trying to get you like a roasted caramel frap, throw 3 pumps of extra espresso, caramel drizzle, strawberry, whatever, dude. One of those fucking frou ass, put it in the blender, fart in it, I don't care, whatever you do, dude. Right? You waiting in line, right? There's like 6 people ahead of you for some reason. You're waiting in line. And then off in the corner, you just see like 3 dudes. And they're all huddled around a table. There's papers strewn about. They're like arguing. He's like, no, you gotta do this. And they're just the whole time, they're planning the downfall of the American government, the takeover of the country. Could you imagine? It's like 3 dudes, and they're 3 dudes from your geography class. Like you just seen them yesterday. Like, dude, Brett, what the hell are you doing, bro? No, nothing. We're just studying for one of our tests. Whole time they're plotting the biggest coup d'etat in American history.
important to remember that the sharing of ideas and the questioning of traditional authority is perhaps the defining characteristic of the Age of Enlightenment. Sure, there are plenty of scientific discoveries during this time, just as there were during the scientific revolution that preceded the Enlightenment. But the Enlightenment wasn't just about science and invention like the scientific revolution. The Enlightenment is regarded as a distinct, standalone period in Western civilization because it was an intellectual and philosophical movement that changed the way that humans thought about the world. Enlightenment thinkers like John Locke, Voltaire, Thomas Jefferson believed science and reason could be used to ensure individual rights for the common man, improve systems of government. The Enlightenment occurred because ideas were being
Thomas Jefferson also initiated the Trail of Tears, but we're not gonna get into that, dude.
shared.
I don't know if Thomas Jefferson's the guy we should be listening to about enlightenment and logical reasoning, rights for all men.
Caffeine helped with the ideas. Coffee houses absolutely helped with the sharing. So as you can see, a society's drug of choice has a massive impact. For hundreds of years, Western civilization literally had a depressant flowing through its veins. The manifestation of that was the Dark Ages, perhaps the most unproductive period in human history. Once the West switched over
That's what I call it. You know what I'm saying? I know I've made the same joke 7 times, but it's gonna be the running joke for the rest of the video, and I don't care. Right? That's what I call it. After you drink the coffee, and you're on the toilet for 45 minutes, That's the Dark Ages.
Coffee, there was a new focus on reason and free thought. Democratic ideals swept the Western world, and globalization had taken productivity to a whole nother level. So that begs the question, what comes next? Will caffeine continue to dominate our culture for centuries? Or will the pendulum inevitably swing back to alcohol? Or is there another drug on the horizon? Well, here's the thing. What if I told you there was another drug on the horizon? Remember how I mentioned earlier that coffee is a $100 billion a year industry? So what if I told you that this drug on the horizon already is a $100 billion a year industry? Only right now it's largely underground because it's currently illegal in a lot of the world. It's changing though. Because not only is this drug becoming increasingly legal in countries across the globe with every passing year, but also young people have more permissive views of this drug than older generations do. Just like we saw with coffee right before the Enlightenment. What if I told you that this drug has seen its usage increase by 60% worldwide over the last decade, and is by far the most widely abused drug in the world? And what if I told you that this drug is neither a stimulant nor a depressant? Loyal theorists, I submit to you that the next massive movement of drug of choice for society at large is cannabis. Okay, before you start calling me Matt Pot down in the comments below, hear me out here. There are a lot of reasons to believe
Pot! Dude, I know Matt! Woo-wee, bro! I know Matt be going crazy, bro! He chiefing the steezies on the low key in his free time. Oh my god, dude. I know Matt Pat be going crazy on that bong. Taking the craziest, wettest rips. Just going to absolute bonkers. Just snurfing the darfs, bro. Just chiefing the steezies.
Cannabis, which includes marijuana, hemp, a variety of other plants, could eventually become the world's next drug of choice. And I'm aware that there are a whole lot of cannabis
Matt Pat secretly has dreads. He has dreadlocks. He just hides them underneath that wig he wears.
Considered illegal in a whole lot of places currently. But remember, both caffeine and alcohol have been illegal too. Caffeine has been banned numerous times over the past few centuries across the Middle East, Europe, Russia. Don't forget, coffee houses started in Europe as invisible colleges. People were sewn into leather bags and tossed into the sea because of their coffee-related violations. And as for alcohol, it is still banned outright in dozens of countries. And let's not forget that alcohol was made illegal in the United States just 100 years ago during Prohibition. And there are still dry counties littered across the nation to this very day. So the path to becoming widely accepted isn't easy for any new illicit substance. But alcohol and caffeine both managed to weather the storm, and today they enjoy widespread use and legalization. And it sure feels like the wind's blowing in the same direction for cannabis currently too. Uruguay decriminalized recreational marijuana.
Dude, hell yeah! Weed for everybody, dude. Let's get it. Let's fucking get it. I think if everybody was chiefing all the time, the world would be a lot peaceful. A lot more peaceful. Think about it. Nobody's gonna want to go to war if you are blasted out of your mind on your mom's couch with a bag of hot Cheetos and you're elbow deep. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's getting their ass up and going to war. Stop it. You think Kim Jong is gonna have the motivation to press the button? Stop. Just stop. He's been busy staring at cat videos on autoplay on YouTube for the past 2 hours. He's had no concept of time whatsoever. Think about it. The world would be a much, much better place.
Marijuana use in 2016,
That's what I think.
and Canada followed their lead shortly thereafter. Since then, South Africa, Luxembourg, and certain US states have begun to allow recreational marijuana use too, with more nations like New Zealand and Mexico expected to follow suit. And that's just recreational use. Medical cannabis, which is often a nation's first step towards decriminalization of recreational use, is exploding across the globe right now. So if we're discussing what the world's next drug of choice might be, cannabis has to be in the discussion. The markets for medical and recreational cannabis products are trending upward. Legally sold cannabis in the US, for example, is expected to triple by 2023. So let's just pretend for a moment that I'm right. Say cannabis does indeed become the drug of choice for Western civilization someday soon. What would that mean for society? Would society start to resemble the
society would be amazing. Society, think about it. Think about it. Imagine there's some like young inventor He gets absolutely chiefed out of his mind. He's flying on Pluto. And he just comes up with one of the most brilliant inventions of all time. Right? I was gonna say it's a robot that wipes your ass, but then I realized, okay, a bidet is already a thing. Maybe something that scrubs your back for you, gives you a foot rubs. I don't know, dude. Some crazy invention. I think the world would be much better if everybody was just blasted. 24/7.
Because cannabis isn't as easy
Think
to
about it.
classify as alcohol or caffeine. Cannabis is a
Think about it. Martha Stewart goes hard. And she's a genius, a brainiac. Right? Snoop Dogg, brilliant rapper, you know?
term that encompasses a whole lot
Elon!
of products derived from a whole lot of different parts of a whole lot of different plants. As a result, it
telling
doesn't
you.
fit into one singular classification. It can act as a depressant in certain forms. It can act as a stimulant in other forms. It can also act as an opioid. Opioids affect the body by attaching proteins to opioid receptors in the brain, effectively blocking a person's perception of pain. Opioids can make you feel relaxed, even euphoric. If opioids were represented by a person, they'd be Olaf from Frozen.
Hi everyone, I'm Olaf, and I like warm hugs.
I mean, the guy's never not happy, he feels no pain, and he is
See?
definitely chill, but
See? Like, imagine if all of the world leaders were just like Olaf. There would be no conquests. There'd be no raids. There'd be no civil wars. Nothing.
could society really go in that direction? Could we actually become more like Olaf?
Hello.
Let's really think about this.
telling
Prior
you.
to the Enlightenment,
Combat sports are gonna just turn into giant games of rock, paper, scissors. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's instead of boxing, you play rock, paper, scissors. Instead of MMA, it's like tic-tac-toe. Right? Instead of kickboxing, you play Connect Four.
society was all about alcohol, right? For centuries and centuries, everybody was on a depressant, and in the grand scheme of things, not a whole lot changed during that time. Monarchies and the church were essentially permanent fixtures of the era, but science and understanding slowly advanced nonetheless. We discovered the Earth wasn't literally the center of the universe. We discovered new continents. By the time the mid-1600s rolled around, Europe was ready for a new way of thinking and experiencing the world, and coffee was right on time. So what about today? Is cannabis right on time? Is
Let's
marijuana
go.
just what the doctor prescribed for all that ails contemporary society? Allow me to put my Matt Pot hat back on for a moment and submit to you that, yeah.
Could you
we
imagine
very
coffee and weed switch places, right? It's kind of already a thing in Colorado. You will find more dispensaries than you will Starbucks. I'm not joking. You will see 3 different dispensaries in the same strip mall. That is a thing, dude. There are just as many dispos as there are gas stations. I'm not making this up, dude. But imagine, right? That is the life everywhere. Right? At 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a line out the door at the dispensary. The smell of fresh marijuana just wafting through the air. Right, a lovely old white couple, Eustace and Mariel, just going on a nice, lovely stroll.
well be at another societal juncture in
They're
human
smoking on
history
some
because
granddaddy
collectively
perp.
the world is, quote, more stressed, worried, sad, and in pain today than we've ever seen it. Think about it. For the past 3 centuries, society has been obsessed with productivity and technological advancement. We've had an industrial revolution, and globalization has essentially swept up everyone. And believe it or not, we've become even more obsessed with caffeine than ever before. Today, tea is the most widely consumed beverage in the world, but coffee is right on its heels with number 2. Caffeinated energy drinks and caffeinated sodas reside in the top 8 drinks as well. And where has all that caffeine gotten us? Despite all the technological advancements and modern day comforts, the world is
And now we have monkeypox running around, dude. Look at where we're at. Look at where we're at. Soon as caffeine gets introduced to humanity, monkeypox. That's not a coincidence. That is not a coincidence.
more stressed and sad than it's ever been. Perhaps a worldwide uptick in cannabis use is the indication that society is finally ready to chill out for a bit and frame the world in yet another new way. But hey, that's just a theory. A food theory. And speaking of framing your viewpoint of the world in a new way, that is the goal of this channel, Food Theory. Each episode is getting you to question your assumptions about the food that you
Let's
consume.
go, dude. Let's go. Coffee was basically the Renaissance crack. All right? There were kingpins back in the day, wearing penny loafers, moving pounds and bricks and kilos, right? Trapping out the bando. And now look where we're at. Now look at where we're at. The world is in chaos, turmoil, hysteria everywhere, dude. And that's why Matt Pat and me agree. You know what I'm saying? Weed for everybody. If everybody is blasted out of their minds, sunken halfway into the couch, dude. They've been watching reruns of Friends for 6 hours. They have no idea how to turn it off because they can't find the remote. They've been eating the same bag of barbecue Lays the entire time. When the hell did I order this Village Inn, dude? I don't fucking know. All I know is I do not have the time nor the energy to go to war with North Korea. And that's why I think the world would be a better place.